Level 1. The volunteer. You're 24. You don't enlist. You respond to something that doesn't look like a military ad. It's a short post buried in an online forum thread. 3 lines. Competitive compensation. International security work. Discretion required. No government logo. No official contact name. Just a phone number. You were doing construction work in Rostov-on-Don. Contracts dried up in January and didn't come back. Your landlord raised the rent in March. A man in a grey jacket found you at a bar near the train station. He said he could connect you with people who had steady work abroad. He gave you a number and told you to call before Friday. You called on Thursday. Nobody says Wagner. They say private security, special contract work, competitive by industry standards. You sign a form with no letterhead in a small office with no sign on the door. 3 weeks later, a van arrives before dawn. 1 bag allowed. Phones off at the checkpoint. You drive south into Krasnodar Krai to a training base outside the village of Molkino, about 30 kilometers south of Krasnodar, along the M4 highway. Low concrete buildings, wire perimeter, CCTV cameras facing inward, not outward. No flags anywhere. The code phrase at the first checkpoint is, "How do I get to the Pioneer Camp?" GRU, Spetsnaz troops man the gate. You give the phrase. They let you through. The instructor introduces himself by call sign only. No last names, no rank insignia. This is not the Russian army, and it makes no attempt to look like it. Training lasts 21 days. Kalashnikov strip and reassemble blindfolded. Grenade launcher handling. DHK heavy machine gun. Mine laying. Urban clearance. How to advance under fire and hold a position when everything in your body says to run. The men in your cohort are from everywhere. Former soldiers, factory workers, a man who says he worked a warehouse in Chelyabinsk and doesn't elaborate. Nobody pushes for more. One evening, another volunteer asks what happens if someone wants to leave mid-contract. The instructor looks at him for 4 seconds and walks away. That night, the volunteer's bunk is empty. You stop asking questions. You learn the call signs. You eat the rations cold. You follow before you understand. At the end of the 21 days, you're told your deployment location 1 day before you leave. Syria. Level 2. The fighter. You're 25. The cargo plane lands at Hemyimim Air Base, near Latakia, on Syria's northwest coast. The heat meets you at the cargo door like a physical wall. It is nothing like Rostov in summer. It is something from a different planet. You move south by truck convoy through terrain with no reference point for anything you've seen before. Cracked earth, abandoned roads, burned out vehicles that nobody has moved in months. Your unit is positioned east of Palmyra. The ancient city was retaken from ISIS in March 2016, with Wagner fighters at the front. The Russian Ministry of Defense officially attributed the operation to the Syrian Arab Army. Everyone on your truck knows who actually led it. No one says it for the record because there is no record. Your assignment: hold the eastern perimeter and push toward Deir ez-Zor. The men you fight alongside have been here before, some 3 or 4 times. They move through rubble without hesitation, sleep on stone without complaint, eat from tins they don't bother to heat. Combat is not what you imagined. It's a mortar round close enough to slam you sideways. It's a man stepping wrong in the dark and the unit freezing for 20 minutes. It's 2 hours of nothing, followed by 30 seconds your body will run and rerun for years. You survive your first sustained firefight by not moving until someone with more experience moves first. Afterward, you don't feel like you've accomplished something. You feel like something has been used up inside you that isn't coming back. A veteran from your unit sits beside you outside the perimeter wall that night. He doesn't ask how you're doing. He says, learn the ground before you study the enemy. Trust the man beside you, because nothing else in this structure will. You never learn his real name. You know his call sign for 8 months. Then he rotates out. Your deployment runs 4 months. Flown back to Russia, paid in cash in a room with 2 men you've never met, told to report back in 3 weeks. No ceremony, no debrief, no official record that you were ever in Syria. You call your mother from a payphone at the airport. You tell her you were doing security work in the Gulf. She says she's glad you're safe. You don't correct her. Level 3. The senior fighter. You're 27. 3 deployments. Syria. Libya. Syria again. Libya was different in every way. You arrived in 2019 as part of Wagner's support for the Libyan National Army under Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, operating around Sirte and along the front lines south of Tripoli. Foreign advisory role, officially. Occasional direct operations that left no paperwork in any language. You stopped flinching at incoming fire sometime during the second deployment. You stopped lying awake after the third. New recruits arrive, and you can see in their faces what you must have looked like at Molkino. The careful way they hold their weapons. The questions they want to ask but don't. You don't comfort them. You show them how to clear a doorway correctly. You keep them alive through specifics, not reassurance. One evening, a new arrival asks whether Wagner answers to the Kremlin. You hand him his water ration and tell him to sleep while he can. He doesn't ask again. You understand what this organization is now. It exists in the space between official and deniable. Wagner fighters are killed, and the Ministry of Defense releases no statement, because officially, no Russian soldiers were there. Families of men who don't come home receive private cash payments and sign documents they're advised not to discuss. There are no official memorial lists, no public graves with dates. You know this. You sign your 4th contract anyway. Because what's the alternative? Rostov-on-Don, the construction sites, the gray jacket man at the bar. You were lost before they found you. Here, at least, you know exactly what you are. The briefing takes place in a building in St. Petersburg, in the same block as a catering company registered under the name Concord Management and Consulting, Prigozhin's front company. Nobody explains the connection. You don't ask. The assignment? Ukraine. Eastern Front. Full-scale invasion. 2022 has changed everything. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. Level 4, the Assault Squad Commander. You're 29. You command 10 men, 1 assault squad, Eastern Ukraine. The front shifts so fast that coordinates from the morning briefing are outdated by afternoon. What was a road last week is a trench system now. What was a village a month ago is a grid reference on a targeting map. Your squad is split down the middle. Half are fighters who've been through Syria or Libya, who understand how Wagner works and know the rules without being told twice. The other half arrived under a different arrangement entirely. In the summer of 2022, Yevgeny Prigozhin began visiting Russian prisons personally. He stood in prison yards and made a direct offer: 6 months of service with Wagner in Ukraine, and your sentence ends when your contract does. Your record is cleared. You walk out free. The condition is that you survive. The prison recruits fill the second half of your unit. A man who torched a business for insurance money. A man whose bar fight in Yekaterinburg ended with a death. A man who won't say what he did, and you've learned not to push on that silence. You don't judge them. Management is the job now. You run kit inspections before first light. You walk your positions after midnight. When a prison recruit falls asleep on watch, you handle it inside the unit. Escalating it upward means he doesn't come back, and you need every man you have for tomorrow. Wagner's rules in Ukraine are not guidelines. Unauthorized retreat, punishable by death. Surrender to Ukrainian forces, punishable by death. Desertion, punishable by death. You have seen this enforced. You don't need to see it twice. The battle for Bakhmut begins, consuming your existence from the summer of 2022 onward. A grinding, street-by-street fight through eastern Donetsk Oblast that eats men at a rate no briefing prepared you for. Wagner is the primary assault force. Prison recruits at the front, veterans pushing behind them. One morning, you send 11 men into a fortified position on the northern approach to the city. 7 come back by nightfall. You write the after-action report. Positions, timings, ammunition expenditure. Not what it felt like to count who returned. You submit it. You get your squad back to strength by morning. You push forward. Level 5, the Assault Platoon Commander. You're 31. You command 3 assault squads and a fire support squad, roughly 40 men. Bakhmut is still burning. It has been burning for months. Wagner leads the main assault while the Russian conventional military holds the flanks, and the friction between those two structures has become impossible to ignore from any level of the chain. Your orders come from Wagner's internal command. Occasionally, they conflict directly with requests from Russian army units operating on your perimeter. You've learned to find the overlap between what Wagner wants and what the army liaison is asking for, and to operate in that overlap. When there is no overlap, you follow Wagner command and explain to the liaison afterward. A Russian army liaison officer, close to your age, confronts you near the staging area one afternoon. His unit has been told to support your advance, but Wagner command hasn't confirmed the coordination. He's frustrated in a way that tells you he's still surprised by it. You've stopped being surprised by anything. You tell him, checkpoint, 0600, we'll sort it then. He nods. You both know it's a holding answer. But holding answers keep things moving, and things need to keep moving. On May 5th, 2023, Prigozhin releases a video that nobody who sees it will forget. He films it standing in front of the bodies of dead Wagner fighters on the Bakhmut front, corpses on the ground behind him. He stares directly at the camera and addresses Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov by name. He calls the failure to supply ammunition a betrayal. He says they are dying because of decisions made by men sitting in expensive offices whose children film themselves for YouTube. He threatens to withdraw every Wagner unit from Bakhmut on May 10th. Your men pass a phone around the staging area watching it. Some of them cheer. You give them 30 seconds. Then you take the phone and tell them to check their positions. You understand what the men below you don't yet. When two power structures begin fighting in public over who is responsible for the dead, the men who produce those dead are standing right in the middle of it. Prigozhin doesn't withdraw on May 10th. The ammunition arrives. Wagner stays in Bakhmut, but something has shifted that can't be shifted back. Level 6, the Assault Company Commander. You're 34. You command 2 assault platoons, roughly 100 men, the company-sized element embedded within an assault detachment. Bakhmut falls to Wagner on May 20th, 2023. Prigozhin announces it himself in a video filmed from the ruins of the city, surrounded by fighters, the buildings destroyed around him. He addresses the Russian Ministry of Defense directly, on camera, without restraint. You watch the video once, you don't watch it again. The victory is real, the cost is real. Across the 8 months of your company's involvement in the Bakhmut operation, you sustained 41 killed and roughly twice that in wounded, who rotated out and didn't come back to you. You submitted every casualty report. You attended no funerals. There are no funerals. Wagner men are buried quietly, privately. Families given instructions on what to say and what not to say. Documents signed in exchange for cash payments that appear in no public accounting anywhere. After Bakhmut, your unit is pulled back for rotation. 8 days. 8 days off is something you have to relearn how to inhabit. You sleep 12 hours the first night and wake convinced you've missed something. You eat a full meal at a canteen table and can't finish half of it. You walk the base compound with nothing to inspect and don't know what to do with your hands when they're not holding something with a purpose. On the 6th day, you receive a new briefing. Africa, Mali, the rest classified until departure. You followed the African operations at a distance. Wagner entered the Central African Republic in 2018, trading security guarantees for gold and diamond mining concessions. The model worked efficiently. The government received protection. Wagner extracted resources through networks that ran back to St. Petersburg. International bodies couldn't formally object because Wagner officially didn't exist. The same model expanded to Sudan, Libya, and Mozambique. In Mali, French forces were expelled by a junta that pivoted to Russia for support. France withdrew its 2,400 troops in 2022 after ties with the Malian military government broke down. You don't analyze the politics, you analyze the terrain. Desert and Sahelian bush, a fragmented enemy with no fixed lines. Long supply chains, a completely different operational reality from anything you've commanded before. You study satellite maps of the Sahel on a tablet in your bunk. 2 weeks later, you're on a southbound plane. Level 7, the Assault Detachment Commander. You're 38. You command an assault detachment, Wagner's primary fighting unit. 3 assault platoons, a fire support platoon, a reconnaissance platoon, an armored group, a medical group, a sniper section, and a transport group. Up to 300 men across 3 operating zones in Mali. The Sahel is unlike anywhere you've operated. The enemy is not a standing army. It is a loose network of jihadist factions, some affiliated with Al-Qaeda's Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, some with ISIS in the Greater Sahara, moving across borders drawn by European powers over a century ago that reflect no real human geography. The Malian military is your formal partner. In practice, they defer to you on almost every tactical question. You hold coordination meetings in rooms with no air conditioning, watching how Malian officers react to the translation rather than the words, because translation and meaning are not always the same thing. There are incidents. In one operation in the Mopti region, targeting a cell placed in a specific compound, the intelligence is wrong. The men found inside are not fighters. The after-action report is written by you. Objective cleared. No confirmed civilian casualties. Further review recommended. You know what you wrote. You file it. You move on. Then on the night of June 23, 2023, Prigozhin declares an armed mutiny. You follow it on a satellite phone in Mali. Wagner fighters seize the headquarters of Russia's southern military district in Rostov-on-Don. An armored column moves north on the M4 highway toward Moscow. It gets within 200 kilometers before it stops. Lukashenko brokers the agreement. Prigozhin accepts terms. The column reverses. 3 days of silence follow, the kind that means decisions are being made with no public record. On August 23, 2023, an Embraer Legacy 600 departs Sheremetyevo Airport bound for St. Petersburg. It crashes near Kuzhenkino in Tver Oblast, 100 kilometers from Moscow. All 10 on board are killed. Prigozhin, co-founder Dmitry Utkin, logistics chief Valery Chekalov, 2 Wagner veterans, 2 bodyguards, and the 3-person flight crew. DNA testing confirms all identities by August 27th. The Russian government opens an investigation. No one states publicly what they believe caused it. No one needs to. A message arrives. Operations continue as planned. You brief your officers. Operations continue as planned. You don't sleep well after that. Not from grief. Because you understand now that this structure has no loyalty to anyone. It has utility, and utility has a shelf life. Level 8, the Field Commander. You're 42. After Prigozhin's death, Wagner doesn't collapse. It is divided and reorganized. Fighters in Ukraine are given a choice. Sign contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense, integrate into the National Guard, or be released. Most sign. Because the work is the same, the pay is the same, and leaving a structure like this carries its own risks. In Africa, the transition takes a different form. In early 2024, Russia's Ministry of Defense formalizes a successor organization called Africa Corps, placing Wagner's African operations directly under state control. Same personnel, same countries, same operations, but with a new name and direct Kremlin oversight replacing Prigozhin's semi-autonomous command. Deputy Defense Minister Yunus Bek Yevkurov takes operational responsibility for the continent. You're folded into Africa Corps. Your operational knowledge of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger is too valuable to discard. A new administrative layer appears above the field commanders. Men in civilian clothes who ask specific questions, not about tactics, but about resource agreements, mining concession status, revenue routing. You answer their questions completely. You oversee operations in 3 countries. In Burkina Faso, a Russian contingent protects the junta's interim leader in Ouagadougou. In Niger, after the July 2023 coup expelled French forces, Africa Corps fills the vacuum. In Mali, the same men who were Wagner last year are Africa Corps this year. You're flown to Moscow 3 times a year. You brief a deputy who briefs someone above him. You understand the distance and don't push against it. In one meeting, a deputy hands you a new operational framework. All concession agreements now require Central Ministry of Defense approval. All revenue routing needs clearance from an office you've never heard of. All local government relationships must be reported monthly. The gray space that made Wagner effective, the autonomy, the speed, the deniability, is being closed from the inside. You're no longer operating in the margins. You're a managed asset. You sign the document. You fly back. Level 9, the Council of Commanders. You're 46. You're recalled to Moscow. Assigned to an advisory role within Wagner's ruling body, the Council of Commanders, now restructured under Africa Corps, following Prigozhin's death. Cleared building. No phones past the entrance. You advise on operational capacity across the African theater, threat mapping, resource logistics, partner government relationships. 22 years across 5 countries. Nobody in the room knows those environments the way you do. For the first time since Molkino, you feel indispensable. An apartment with permanent building security, a car and driver. Your schedule managed by an assistant you didn't request. You attend meetings where military planning and political decision-making stop being distinct categories. Which African governments receive support? Which concessions are prioritized? Which operations stay deniable? You've climbed for more than 2 decades. This is the top of what's left of the structure. Then, an operation in Burkina Faso becomes visible. A resource convoy moving through the Boucle du Mouhoun region in western Burkina Faso is ambushed by an armed group. 18 men killed. Local journalists cover it within hours. A French correspondent publishes a detailed report. European newspapers carry it. Images circulate internationally. By operational standards, it is not a catastrophe. By the standards of this structure, visibility is the one thing it cannot absorb cleanly. An internal review is ordered. You wrote the original security parameters for that convoy corridor 6 weeks before the ambush. You approved the escort configuration. Your name appears on the route assessment. No one accuses you. The process is courteous and methodical. A man you have never seen before sits across from you in a quiet room and asks 3 questions. Why was the Eastern Corridor selected over the Northern alternative? Who validated the decision to reduce the escort size? Did the threat assessment account for recent armed group movement reported in the region the prior month? You answer calmly, with documentation. Your justifications are accepted. The review closes. 2 weeks later, your advisory role is restructured. Your portfolio is reduced. Your clearance level is quietly adjusted downward. You're asked to lead a new coordination office focused on long-term strategic alignment across the African theater. Important work, you're told. You understand exactly what has happened. You've watched it happen to other men enough times to read it without being told. You don't fight it. You move into the coordination office. Your name stops appearing on operational summaries within the month. Level 10, the erased. You're 48. The coordination office is on the 4th floor. You arrive at 9. You read overnight cables. You draft summaries of reports already summarized by someone more junior. You attend a noon meeting where every decision was made before you walked in. Your driver was reassigned 4 months ago. you take the metro. 40 minutes each way. It's the only part of the day where no one expects anything from you. The men who once waited on your approvals have a new point of contact. A field commander in his mid-30s who asked careful questions, wrote everything down, and looked at you with the particular respect people give to someone who used to matter. You remember looking at men that way. There is no loyalty in a structure like this. Loyalty is what it demands from you. What it offers in return is access while you're useful and silence when you're not. You moved through Syria when Palmyra was still contested. You operated in Libya before the Tripoli front had a name. You built Wagner's presence across the Sahel, country by country, concession by concession. You commanded men whose real names you never learned in streets that appear on no official record. You did things you will not write down. You built the gray area that gave this organization its power, then watched it close that gray area from the inside. Africa Corps replacing Wagner. State control replacing autonomy. Official oversight replacing deniable command. That is not betrayal, that is efficiency. You would have done the same. One afternoon, you find an old encrypted message on a phone you forgot you still had, from your Molkino contact, the week before your first deployment. A list, boot size, cold weather liner, gloves. Just the logistics of getting a 24-year-old from Rostov-on-Don ready for Syria. You read it once, you close it. You finish your shift, you take the metro home. You eat something you don't taste. You sleep before it's dark. In the morning, you go back. You were never rising. You were being deployed. And the moment you stopped being deployable, the structure moved forward without a pause. That is the only thing they never put in the contract. Not because they forgot, because they knew you'd sign it anyway.